It's time now for County-Wide, a presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. You'll hear about the interesting issues and happenings that affect all our lives. Here's today's County-Wide.
Well, a good day to you and welcome to the program. It is County-Wide. I'm Brad Miller, and we're very happy to welcome into studio a faithful servant of Yavapai County for decades now, and a kind of a swan song from Tim Carter, Superintendent of Schools, Yavapai County. You were not on the ballot recently for the first time in a while.
No, I was not.
You were not. Is this retirement? Please tell us.
Oh, it's retirement
From this position,
but you know I'm going to continue to be active in some way or
that's
another.
What I kind of assumed. We'll see later in the show if Tim will tip his hand further as to some plans. But we thank you for your service, as we do all public servants. How long? How many years? Yavapai County School Superintendent?
19 and a half and 51 in education.
In education. God bless you, sir. Well, that is really something. Winning the election, I believe, unopposed, was Steve King.
That's correct.
He'll be filling your position.
I could not be more happy.
You're very pleased with that?
Yes.
Terrific. Steve, with Cottonwood Area Schools, superintendent, many positions, as you've served as well. When does the change happen? January?
My last day is December 31st. His first day is January 1st.
Right, with the new year. All right. Well, thank you much. Education is on the minds of everybody, whether you've got children in school, you were a child, you remember what it was like. What is it like today for our schools? And we're going to talk about that. One thing that really bubbled up, especially during the COVID pandemic, but as a need and a desire of the county to really kind of do something, is with something that is afoot now, Tim, and you really kind of got in place, the Yavapai County Broadband Initiative. Talk to me about that. That sounds like a big project, but you're going to help us understand it in 20 minutes or so.
It is a big project, and I will try to help everybody understand. So we realized in the school world that we had somewhat of an issue with what we refer to as the middle mile. How do you get connectivity from the source of whatever that information is, what we refer to as a trunk line, to the actual area where that information is needed? So into a school, for example, that would be called the middle mile. And we knew that we had schools that were not able to provide instruction through and with other schools, and that's something that is happening more and more these days. And so that was one of our initial concerns. But then when COVID hit and we had parents and kids at home, even though we had an adequate middle mile, they weren't on our campuses anymore. They were at home.
Right.
They were in their homes, and they didn't have adequate broadband. We had some that didn't have any at all. They were completely unserved, but a great majority were underserved. So they probably could have all done something by email, but if they were having to upload something or download something, and if you had mom and dad and 2 or 3 kids that were all trying to be online at the same time, all of a sudden we didn't have the capacity to do what all those folks needed to do. And that's when it became very obvious to the county that we need to become more involved. So our agency had already completed the middle mile by using grants from the state of Arizona. And so what the county wants to do, which I completely support, is to try to make sure that we get adequate broadband into the homes and businesses. Not only will it be an economic driver, but it certainly will be a positive thing from an educational standpoint as well. And so we have been awarded $20 million, which came out of a federal grant for a total of $46.2 million.
Okay.
And broadband was one of those things that those dollars could be used for. We've already completed a bill in Congress, 2,800 passings. That's the term we use. So that means that you're going to have cable, either aerial, which is overhead, or underground, go right by your home or your business, maybe in front, maybe behind, maybe in an alleyway, but where you can access it if you choose to. It's not something you have to access, but it's certainly something that you could. And it's also interesting that we're being told that if you have access to broadband, your property value dramatically goes up by about $2,000.
Makes sense.
So, okay, that's just another utility that you now have that you didn't have. So Congress is completely finished. We are just about finished in Black Canyon City. That should be done in the first quarter of 25. And the Board of Supervisors authorized us to allow for 3 RFPs. And we did those in 3 different categories, and it was awarded to additional broadband providers. So we have a bill that is going to be starting in December with Mayor in Cordes Junction, with Beaver Creek, Paulden, and in an area off of Highway 169 called White Horse Ranch.
Okay.
And that's going to be WECOM, which is a broadband company from over on the Colorado River that has done a lot of work and is now expanding throughout the state. And then we also had one here in the Verde Valley that is at the Verde Villages. And the Verde Villages is in unincorporated areas just outside the city, but it's within the edge of it is within about a mile of Mingus Union High School. It's right along Highway 169 on both the north and south side if you're headed toward Camp Verde.
Okay.
There's 4,400 homes and businesses in there that are either unserved or underserved.
Okay, help me understand how you identified all of these places, starting in Congress, all of that list you just gave us. Those are just known to have these, I don't know if you call them holes or deficiencies.
In our
service.
world, we would call it a void.
Void, sure.
And yes, there are federal websites and state websites where you can look at a map of the state of Arizona and you can see where certain levels of service are, adequate services, and where it's not. And maybe it's not because it's on a national forest and nobody lives there.
Gotcha.
Or maybe it's not because it's not an area where there's any kind of financial productivity to be had in that area. But we initially identified over 24 what we're referring to as islands.
Okay.
And an island is
kind of
an
what they
unserved area. So the Verde Villages, we're looking at that as an island. We need to help the people that are in that area on that unserved island get service. Not only so the students can have access to it for schools, but so mom and dad can have access to it for their work, or maybe small business, or maybe it would be a retiree that needed to access online services from a medical provider.
Okay.
So it really is something that is very large from the standpoint of how each individual might look at it. Somebody told me the other day, they said, that's the way Alexander Graham Bell must have thought when he invented the telephone, and then realized, well, now I'm going to have to connect this telephone to everybody else's telephone.
Right.
Well, today in a cell phone world, we realize that you don't have to have a line. You can have a cellular tower. But for broadband to be sufficient in your home and your business, it's got to be a cable
plant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that has to be provided. And even once all of the current RFPs that we're working on right now have been finalized, which would be into 2026, we still have about 8 or 9 islands in Yavapai County that we still have to resolve.
Okay. Is there a time frame? Is there a deadline of any kind, given the grant nature of all this funding?
Well, there are certainly limitations on the funds we have now. We have to start construction in 24.
Okay.
So in all of these areas, we will have construction started with each of those vendors at no later than the end of December of 24.
Okay. And we're on track.
And then we're on track, absolutely. Okay. And many of them, like I said, are already done or very close to being done.
Gotcha.
But we have some that will then go into 25 and then can actually extend through the end of 26. Now, there's more funding coming. The next round of grants that we're looking at are what are called BEAD grants. And those are really kind of a partnership between the federal government and the state government, again, for broadband.
Okay.
And so there's at least one more wave that we're going to need to work toward to really resolve some of the issues we still have in Yavapai County.
We think about this. We think about, well, COVID boiled a lot of this up, as it did with everything across the nature of existence, really. But it really underscored some of those deficiencies you're pointing to. And people say, well, that was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. All of us alive, I think, are going to hope there's never anything else like that again. But there's a practical application here, too. This internet ain't going away. So young people, and they're especially the K through 12 kids that we're kind of talking about today, are going to, this demand is not going to, it's maybe diminished with COVID done. Classroom learning is back, but who knows what other things can kind of happen. And even just the course of a public school education is going to require this access. This is not just something that's a knee-jerk reaction to COVID.
I think you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
I mean, we know for a fact that we're going to have more technology, not less.
That's right. Okay. Tim Carter is our guest. School superintendent for 19 and a half years. I'm going to say 20. And 50 plus years as an educator, and is going to be done at the end of this year. We're talking with Tim, and more to come on this issue and others on Countywide. We'll be back right after.
Life changes, then it changes again. Predicting the unexpected in life is impossible. That's why it's called unexpected. So when it comes to financial goals, our philosophy is don't predict, prepare. Hi, I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Matthias Sandoval. A job loss, change in health, or a loss of a loved one can have a big impact on your family's financial security. Let's work together to help make sure you're equipped for life's unexpected events. Call our office to schedule a face-to-face appointment.
Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Verde Solaire, your hometown heating, air conditioning, and plumbing company in the Verde Valley, and your trusted North Central Arizona Goodman dealer. Goodman is a name you can trust with the revolutionary Comfort Bridge technology factory installed into select Goodman gas furnaces and air handlers to ensure the entire system operates at peak energy efficient performance. Verde Solaire offers free in-home estimates, locally owned and operated since 1983. Visit them at verdesolaire.com. Better, cleaner, faster.
Thank you so very much for your generosity and kindness in helping others. I hope that you take advantage of the many Arizona state tax credits available when giving to qualified charities and schools. If you haven't taken advantage, I hope you'll ask your favorite charity if they qualify. You can go to Arizona Department of Revenue website, search for tax credits, and look at the list of qualifying charities. Then look at your latest Arizona income tax return and see how an Arizona tax credit can benefit many. This is Lewis saying thanks again.
Let's talk. That's the message from Jonna Randall Murdoch, your local Farm Bureau agent, providing a personal touch when making insurance and financial decisions. Jonna will simplify your insurance needs while offering competitive pricing. Let's talk auto, home, life, and farm. Call Jonna at Farm Bureau today at 928-649-8686. Your Cottonwood Farm Bureau property and casualty insurance company. At Farm Bureau, they insure more than just farms.
We welcome you back to the program. I'm Brad Miller. It's Countywide. Tim Carter is our guest, outgoing superintendent of schools at the end of this calendar year, succeeded by Steve King, beginning on the 1st of January. So among our final talks with Tim Carter, after we've talked many times,
We have.
over the years. There's so much to talk about when it comes to educating our kids. Now, okay, school superintendents, we're talking about this and access with students. Will this be, I'm assuming, will also be a boon to other departments, emergency service, say, and clearly it'll be used across the county for many platforms.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
In fact, the sheriff was just telling me the other day that they have certain islands that are unique to law enforcement, and their body cameras, they didn't have the bandwidth that they needed in some areas. And this is going to help resolve that issue as well.
Okay.
So, yeah, and that was not something that was
So a deputy goes into some of the areas you described earlier, there could be a connection.
Absolutely.
Connected. Wow. See, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Makes sense, though. It's the kind of thing you don't think about too much until you start to really get into it. You mentioned a number of households. How many students or families or households have been underserved prior to this? Is there a ballpark number?
We were looking at a number of about 42,000 homes and businesses, and then properties that are on the market, but there's no building there yet. So we want to be able to. I mean, these passings
growth
when that growth actually happens and those homes are ready to build, those utilities are already in front of that home.
Well, that's 42,000 just on the face of it. There is a lot of people.
It is.
When you put families in those homes, now you're getting heading toward a good percentage of the county.
Yeah. And of course, the one that we're working on here right now is at 4,411 just in the Verde Villages alone.
Is that the biggest island?
That is the second biggest island.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Biggest is where? I'm just curious. Now I got to know.
It actually is in an area between north of Chino Valley,
okay,
all the way
okay,
through unincorporated area to where you go out of Paulden.
Okay.
So it's north
Okay.
of Chino, and before you get up into the Forest Service, there's a little over 5,000 homes and businesses up there.
And one of the biggest attractions of living in some of these rural areas of our county is that they are rural areas. But here's a downside to that, and the county working very hard to make it so that we're all back on the same kind of playing field. Build out will happen when, and we've started. So how soon?
Here in the Verde Villages, we're planning on breaking ground in December.
Okay.
We have 4 meetings that are tentative at this point, but we think they're pretty solid. The first 3 are going to be just community meetings. Just come out. There'll be representatives from the county. There'll be representatives from Sparklight who will talk with people about here's what the plan is and answer any questions that people might have about it. All of these are going to be at Mingus Union High School, and we greatly appreciate the folks up there allowing us to use their cafeteria, which is pretty easy right outside their parking lot, in and out. And we have 3 different meetings. They're all at 6 p.m. The first one will be on Thursday, November 21st, and then November 25th, which is a Monday, and then November 26th, which is a Tuesday, and they'll replicate each other. So if you can come on one day, that's fine. If you decide you want to come back for multiple, you can, but we're going to be talking about the same issues. I'm sure there'll be different questions, but it just gives people 3 opportunities to come and visit with us. And then the plan is to break ground on December 4th, and we'll also have a little public get-together at 5 o'clock from 5 to 6.
Okay.
They'll have their equipment. They'll have people there that are going to be running the equipment. Some of this is they're actually going to have to dig down to 36 inches. In some cases, there's going to be micro-trenching, which is a little less deep. And then there are some places where they're going to be boring. So they're actually going to be drilling a hole at a certain level of depth. And then that's where the conduit, the blue and orange conduit, will run.
I think I've seen them doing some of these.
Oh,
along
yes.
roadside. Yeah, there's been a lot of that.
We're seeing more and more of it all over the state and all over the country.
Right. Okay. Is there now? This is funded entirely or largely through grant monies. You said at the top of the show.
From the standpoint of Yavapai County, it's entirely through grants.
Okay.
But each one of these vendors are putting money into the pot too.
Okay.
So in this case, Sparklight's county's putting $5 million into this through the grant that we have, the ARPA grant that we have. But then the business is going to be putting in $10 million. So it's a public-private partnership.
Okay.
So only government was eligible to get these grants, but we don't operate a broadband system.
Right.
So we work with them. We supervise their building it. It meets our standards. We have a contract, and we do the inspections and all that. And then at that point, when it's completed, it gets turned over to that company, and that company operates that.
Okay. You can see where I'm going. Is this going to be? This is grant money that's getting the shovels in the ground,
Yes,
getting all the hardware and the infrastructure in place. Once that happens, is a end user going to see a higher bill because there's going to be maintenance on these lines? They're going to break.
The end user actually is going to see a diminished cost, at least for the first 3 years. And
Really?
some of these grants are for 3 years, some are for 5.
Okay.
So at least for that window of time, they're going to see bills that are going to be lower than what we would normally expect them to be.
Okay. There's no way to really answer this, but just to help with my question, and maybe this would be a topic for some of the public meetings. If I just, I know I can remember hearing teachers talk about some of the kids during COVID. They don't have computers at home, or again, underserved. Everybody's on one, and mom needs it for work, like you kind of described. Are folks in these same areas, or is there a concern that they're not going to have the end user hardware in place to take advantage of the broadband.
I think that's always going to be a concern.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not sure exactly how to overcome that. Schools have the ability to provide those things on a kind of a borrowing basis to the families, as long as that student is enrolled in that school.
Right.
But there are some other systems out there that will help impoverished families be able to access to some level of connectivity.
Yeah. I mean, this is always an issue. It's not because of the broadband.
Right.
There goes these other matters. These kind of go hand in hand. Okay. Let's just real quick have you go through once again those meeting dates, because I don't want anybody to miss out. What are the kinds of questions that you're hoping to answer? It sounds like this is really maybe not in the middle of this project, but it's going and happening. But I don't know if there have been previous public meetings, and what are some citizens' concerns?
Yeah, there have not.
How does it work?
There have not been previous meetings.
Okay.
This is going to be the first of those.
Okay.
So the first portion of it will be Yavapai County talking about the grant, talking about why we're doing what we're doing.
Like you and I are doing now.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then Sparklight will come in and talk about the actual construction itself.
Okay.
They'll talk about the services that would be available afterwards if one of those folks, and we're assuming we're probably looking at 80 to 85% of those people are going to want this service. But again, it's up to them. It's there if they want it. They don't have to be involved in it. If
you don't have to use the interstate to get to Phoenix, but you can do it and get there quicker.
That's true.
Generally, you can get there quicker.
So the first meeting will be on the 21st, and then again, they'll each replicate each other. The other will be on the 25th, and then on the 26th.
Okay.
It's the same kind of meeting, just give different people and different dates that might work better for somebody. And then also a tentative meeting at 5 o'clock on December 4th, which is really just a groundbreaking ceremony.
Gotcha. Okay. Exciting stuff. This is great. It's got to feel good. I mean, this is a major project, and it's got to feel good as retiring Tim Carter from the school superintendent to Yavapai County position to kind of get this one. I'll bet this has been on the radar for longer than it's been getting put in place.
It has been on the radar, and we realized years ago we just have to stay after it and stay after it.
Yeah.
I'm very glad that Yavapai County sees the need for it. The person is going to be taking my position as program director for the Broadband Initiative is going to be Corey Christians. Corey's been the library director for years. We've been working very closely. And so I don't think we'll miss a beat after the first of the year.
Terrific. Tim Carter, our outgoing school superintendent, Yavapai County. I'm Brad Miller. It's countywide. We'll see you next time.
Life changes, then it changes again. Predicting the unexpected in life is impossible. That's why it's called unexpected. So when it comes to financial goals, our philosophy is don't predict, prepare. Hi, I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Matthias Sandoval. A job loss, change in health, or a loss of a loved one can have a big impact on your family's financial security. Let's work together to help make sure you're equipped for life's unexpected events. Call our office to schedule a face-to-face appointment.
Edward Jones, Making Sense of Investing. Member SIPC.
Verde Solaire, your hometown heating, air conditioning, and plumbing company in the Verde Valley, and your trusted North Central Arizona Goodman dealer. Goodman is a name you can trust with the revolutionary Comfort Bridge technology factory installed into select Goodman gas furnaces and air handlers to ensure the entire system operates at peak energy efficient performance. Verde Solaire offers free in-home estimates, locally owned and operated since 1983. Visit them at verdesolaire.com. Better, cleaner, faster.
Thank you so very much for your generosity and kindness in helping others. I hope that you take advantage of the many Arizona state tax credits available when giving to qualified charities and schools. If you haven't taken advantage, I hope you'll ask your favorite charity if they qualify. You can go to Arizona Department of Revenue website, search for tax credits, and look at the list of qualifying charities. Then look at your latest Arizona income tax return and see how an Arizona tax credit can benefit many. This is Lewis saying thanks again.
Let's talk. That's the message from Jonna Randall Murdoch, your local Farm Bureau agent, providing a personal touch when making insurance and financial decisions. Jonna will simplify your insurance needs while offering competitive pricing. Let's talk auto, home, life, and farm. Call Jana at Farm Bureau today at 928-649-8686. Your Cottonwood Farm Bureau Property and Casualty Insurance Company. At Farm Bureau, they insure more than just farms.
This has been Countywide. Listen in each Tuesday and Thursday at this time. If you have a topic or guest idea that you'd like to suggest, email us, news@myradioplace.com.